He thought he married the woman of his dreams. But when the lies started small and a private investigator got involved, what he uncovered about his beautiful bride could destroy everything, even his life. Malcolm Pierce wasn't looking for love, not really. At 38, he had built a tech empire in Atlanta and had the kind of money that made problems disappear. Women came and went, mostly drawn to his wealth, his Lake Lanier mansion, or the Tesla Model X he barely drove. He wanted something different, something real. So when his business partner half-joked about international dating apps, Malcolm scoffed. But later that night, curiosity won. He downloaded True Linked Hearts, a discreet platform connecting successful Westerners with women from across the globe. That's when he saw her. Her name was Nyambura Wanjiku, a 27-year-old interior designer from Nairobi. Her almond eyes shimmered through the screen. Her English was flawless. Her laugh was soft but playful. There was a kindness in her words, and something broken too. Malcolm felt it, and maybe, just maybe, that brokenness matched his own. Their video calls became daily rituals. She'd sip chai as he stirred his black coffee. She told him about her late father, her difficult mother, the brother who was in school. He told her about the loneliness of wealth, the emptiness that followed success. She made him feel seen. Within 2 months, he was on a plane to Kenya. The trip was a whirlwind: spiced food, vibrant dances, church visits, and intimate moments on the rooftops of Nairobi hotels. By day 5, he proposed. She said yes, eyes wide with tears. "You've saved me," she whispered. He believed her. The wedding was small but stunning, and within weeks she was in Atlanta with him. But no sooner had the honeymoon begun than the whispers of something darker started to stir. It began with the phone call. Malcolm returned from a board meeting, loosening his tie and heading for the fridge when he noticed Nyambura's phone buzzing on the counter. The name flashing was Jamal Nairobi. Curious but respectful, he left it alone. She came downstairs seconds later, grabbing the phone quickly. "My cousin," she said, barely looking at him. He didn't question it, not yet. The second red flag came 3 days later when his housekeeper Maria pulled him aside. "Sir, the madame asked me not to go into the guest room anymore, said she's handling it." Malcolm was confused. That room had been empty since his cousin moved out last year. He waited until Nyambura went shopping before unlocking the guest room door. It wasn't empty. Inside were multiple large boxes, some sealed, some not. Clothes, beauty supplies, a few electronics. But what startled him most were the documents on the table. Shipping invoices, customs papers, receipts, all addressed to different names. Some in Georgia, some in Texas, some in New York. The addresses didn't match any contacts Nyambura had ever mentioned. He didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, he turned to a contact from his college days, Travis Malone, now a private investigator. Malcolm didn't like feeling suspicious, but something felt off. "Just dig a little," he told Travis. "Nothing serious. I just want to know who I married." What Travis found in the first 72 hours was enough to make Malcolm question everything: her name, her story, her intentions. And the deeper they looked, the more tangled the web became. Someone was lying, and it wasn't just about love. Travis called Malcolm on a rainy Thursday evening, his voice unusually grim. "You said her name is Nyambura Wanjiku, right?" Malcolm leaned forward in his office chair, heart already thudding. "Yeah, why?" "I ran facial recognition on her wedding photos against global databases. It matched 5 profiles, 5 different names, 1 in Nairobi, 2 in South Africa, another in Dubai, and, get this, 1 flagged in a romance scam forum out of Canada." Malcolm's stomach turned. He wanted to scream, wanted to believe there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe someone had stolen her pictures. Maybe this was some identity mix-up. But even as those thoughts flashed, they felt thin, hollow. He remembered a night when Nyambura cried about a bad past she couldn't talk about. He'd held her and said, "We're starting fresh." Maybe she had counted on that. He didn't confront her right away. Instead, he began noticing more: how she locked her phone when she left the room, how she avoided introducing him to anyone from her past, even online, and how one night she left the house claiming to visit a Kenyan friend in Alpharetta, but came back without her ring and smelling faintly of cologne. He asked, "How was your friend?" She smiled too quickly. "Good, we just talked and watched a Nigerian movie." He said nothing, but inside a storm had begun. Nyambura stood at the edge of the marble staircase in their mansion, watching Malcolm descend. There was something colder in his eyes lately, less softness. He was withdrawing, retreating behind a wall of politeness. And it scared her. "You okay?" she asked as they sat at the breakfast bar the next morning. He nodded, but didn't look at her. "Just work." But it wasn't just work, it was Travis. Every day, the investigator sent Malcolm a new piece of the puzzle: a deleted alias, a bank transaction under a different name, a record of Nyambura flying to Johannesburg 2 months before they met, under the name Zinzi B. Kimathi. She was hiding a life, or many. But why? The worst came Friday morning when Travis sent him a voicemail recording. "This was from a burner phone number linked to one of the addresses on those shipping invoices," Travis said. "Listen." Malcolm pressed play. A voice, Nyambura's, laughed softly through the line. "I told you, I'll play the good wife for a few months, then we flip it. The green card, the money, everything. Just stick to the plan and don't call this number again." The blood drained from Malcolm's face. She had used him. She had planned it. But before he could rage or break down, a strange calm settled in. If she was playing a game, he'd learn the rules and play better. He wasn't just a husband anymore, he was a man on a mission. And Nyambura wasn't the only one with secrets. Malcolm waited until Nyambura went out again, this time to buy some hair products with her Kenyan friend. He watched her pull out of the driveway in the white Mercedes he bought her, then headed straight to the basement. He had avoided that part of the house for months. It was unfinished, still lined with exposed beams and plastic sheeting. Nyambura had claimed it gave her bad vibes and asked that it be locked until they could hire renovators. But after the voicemail, Malcolm couldn't ignore the gnawing questions anymore. The basement wasn't empty. In the far corner, behind a dusty drop cloth, was a padlocked storage trunk. Not an old one either. It was new, hard plastic, black, with reinforced edges. Expensive, the type used for travel or smuggling. With bolt cutters in hand, Malcolm snapped it open. Inside, his breath caught. Stacks of sealed envelopes, all addressed to various names. A handful of foreign passports. A Kenyan national ID that read Zinzi Barasa Kimathi, dozens of SIM cards, and near the bottom, a compact handgun tucked inside a velvet jewelry pouch. Malcolm staggered back. The room spun. What was this? Who was she? And just as the panic swelled, he heard the garage door open upstairs. Nyambura was home. Malcolm slammed the trunk shut, shoved the broken padlock inside it, and yanked the dustcloth back over the top just as he heard her heels on the stairs. "Babe?" Her voice echoed through the house, sugary sweet. "Where are you?" He wiped his hands on his jeans, trying to calm his breath before heading up. "Just in the basement, checking the water heater. It's acting weird." She smiled when he came into the living room, bags in her hands, body language calm. But he saw it. A flicker in her eyes. Maybe fear, maybe suspicion. Maybe she had sensed something had shifted. "You okay?" she asked, setting the bags down and walking up to him. "You look tense." He smiled, kissed her cheek. "Just tired." But his mind screamed, liar, to her and to himself. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay awake, watching her silhouette beside him. The softness of her breathing, the curve of her lips. How could someone so beautiful, so gentle, be capable of such manipulation? What had she planned to do with those documents, the gun? And who were the other people involved? Then a new fear crept in. What if she knew that he knew? What if she wasn't waiting to leave him? What if she was planning to strike first? He didn't know who he was sleeping next to anymore, but one thing was now clear. This wasn't a marriage, it was war. Malcolm couldn't sit still. The next morning, he met Travis in the back of a quiet diner off Peachtree Street. The investigator looked like he hadn't slept either. Hooded eyes, unshaven, coat still damp from the rain. He slid into the booth across from Malcolm and dropped a file folder on the table. "You need to get her out of your house," Travis said flatly. "Now." Malcolm opened the folder. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance shots taken outside a storage unit on the west side of town. Nyambura stood in front of it, wearing a long hoodie and sunglasses, speaking to a man Malcolm didn't recognize. The timestamps were from 3 days ago. There were also wire transfers, several large amounts, sent from Malcolm's joint account to unknown names. She'd been moving money under his nose. "She's smart," Travis continued. "This isn't some rookie scam. I've seen this play before. She's part of something bigger, maybe even a marriage fraud ring. You keep waiting. She'll wipe you clean or worse." Malcolm felt sick. He sipped his coffee, but it tasted like metal. "If I confront her, it could go bad, and I don't want this going public." Travis leaned in. "Then do it my way. Let me bait her. We'll fake a financial crash, say your company's under investigation, the feds are freezing your assets. If she's in this for the green card and the money, she'll panic, she'll run, or she'll make a move." Malcolm nodded slowly. It was time to stop reacting and start setting traps. 2 days later, the plan began. Malcolm came home early from a fake emergency meeting, face pale, tie undone, phone in hand. He dropped onto the couch dramatically, making sure Nyambura saw him. She was painting her nails in the sunroom, but she rushed over like the perfect wife. "What happened?" she asked, concern painted across her face like fine makeup. He sighed. "There's trouble at the company. One of our major accounts flagged us for security breaches. The government might freeze some of our assets until we sort it out." Her eyes didn't flicker, but her hand trembled slightly. "Oh no, baby," she whispered, putting a hand on his shoulder. "That sounds so serious." He nodded. "Yeah, they might freeze our joint accounts too, just for a few weeks. I moved some funds to a backup, just in case." That night, she barely ate. Her phone buzzed more than usual. She stepped out twice to call her mum. Malcolm pretended not to notice, but he was timing everything. He sent Travis the footage from the hallway camera. They would cross-reference the timestamps. The trap was working, but nothing prepared Malcolm for what he'd discover next. Later that night, after Nyambura fell asleep, he slipped into her unlocked phone using her thumbprint. She'd forgotten to log out of one messaging app. There was a message. From a contact labelled Butterfly, he bought it. He's scared. "I think I can move phase 2 up. Green card's almost here, just a few more weeks." Under it, a photo of Malcolm, sleeping. He stared at the screen, blood running cold. She had taken that picture while planning how to destroy him. Malcolm stared at the photo on her phone. The image of himself asleep, completely unaware that the woman beside him was documenting him like prey. The timestamp was from just 2 nights ago. His mind raced. Phase 2? What did that even mean? What was left after the marriage, the money, and the green card? He copied the messages, emailed them to a secure burner address, and placed her phone back on the nightstand, careful not to wake her. Lying beside her, he felt the bile rise in his throat. He could feel the weight of her lies pressing down on him like a thick fog. Every soft whisper, every kiss, every "I love you" had been poisoned. By morning, he had a plan. He texted Travis, "She's moving to phase 2. We push back now." Within hours, Travis arranged a fake call from a federal investigator. Malcolm put it on speaker in front of Nyambura. This is Agent Lowell from the Department of Homeland Security. Mr. Pierce, I regret to inform you that a temporary freeze has been placed on your business and personal accounts due to suspicious overseas transactions. We'll require your full cooperation moving forward. Malcolm played the role perfectly. Confused, angry, powerless. Nyambura's face was unreadable, but she didn't interrupt. She simply nodded slowly, then excused herself upstairs. 2 hours later, Travis sent a message. She just left the house, followed her to the same storage unit as before. She wasn't alone. Travis waited in his nondescript grey sedan, camera in hand. He watched from down the street as Nyambura met with the same man from the earlier surveillance footage. This time, they didn't just talk. She handed him something, a flash drive, then they hugged, not like friends. Travis zoomed in, clicked a few photos, and recorded the short interaction. As she left, the man opened the storage unit and began moving boxes. Inside were things Travis hadn't seen before: electronics, duplicate IDs, and what looked like a sealed case filled with foreign currency. Back at the mansion, Malcolm played his part. When Nyambura walked in, she had a smile plastered on, like she'd rehearsed it. "Feeling any better?" she asked softly, kissing his cheek. He forced a chuckle. "Trying to." But inside, he was burning. That night, after she fell asleep again, Malcolm went to the downstairs study and opened the flash drive Travis had managed to intercept earlier. It contained folders, hundreds of them, labeled with men's names. Most had pictures, some had full passport scans, others had love letters. They were all victims, just like him. Each folder was a digital tombstone of some man who thought he'd found love. In one, a man named Lorenzo King had sent nearly $200,000 over the course of 2 years. Another, Marcus DuPont, had been conned into signing property over to a Kenyan fiancé before she vanished. Malcolm felt his heart pound harder with every click. Nyambura was no random girl with a rough past. She was part of an international con operation. And now that Malcolm knew, he wasn't just in danger of heartbreak, he was in danger of disappearing. The weight of betrayal pressed on Malcolm like concrete. Every gesture from Nyambura now looked like acting. Every "I missed you" felt like venom. But if she was bold enough to steal, deceive, and spy, what else was she capable of? He needed a confession. Travis suggested a strategy: create a scenario where she feels safe enough to open up. Malcolm hated the idea, but it was the only shot they had to tie her to the bigger fraud ring. So he staged a breakdown. The next morning, Malcolm made sure she overheard a fake call between him and his lawyer. "I just don't know what to do anymore," he said loudly. "If the investigation drags on, I could lose everything. Nyambura, the company, even the house. I haven't told her yet. I'm scared it'll break her." Nyambura walked in, towel around her neck, hair damp from a shower. She watched him quietly, eyes scanning his every move. That night, Malcolm sat in their room with a bottle of whiskey, slurring his words, pretending to cry. "I don't know if I can make it through this," he whispered to her, head in his hands. "Maybe I should leave the country for a while, just escape this mess." She rubbed his back. "You're stronger than this. Don't give up now." Malcolm kept a recording device in his pocket. Maybe I'll transfer what's left of the money to you," he mumbled. "Just in case something happens to me." Her hand froze mid-stroke. Then, very softly, she said, "You don't need to do that. But I trust you," he slurred. "You've been good to me." A pause. Then her voice turned silkier. "Let me handle it then. Just show me how to access the new account." It wasn't a full confession, but it was proof of intent. And that was enough to get federal interest. The next morning, Malcolm woke up to an empty bed. Nyambura was gone, no note, no phone left behind. Just the faint scent of her perfume and the creak of the bedroom door swinging slightly open from the air conditioning. He rushed to his office, heart pounding. His burner laptop was still there. The flash drive too. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Travis. "We've got a situation. She didn't go far. I followed her to Gwinnett. You won't believe who she's with." Malcolm's fingers trembled as he called back. "She's at a house," Travis said, breathless. "Quiet neighborhood. She went inside with groceries and kissed a guy on the porch. He's older, West African, wearing a wedding ring." Malcolm couldn't believe it. "She's married?" he said, barely able to form the words. "Yeah, and I checked the plates. The guy's name is David Otieno, Kenyan. Been in the States 5 years. Married since 2020. Malcolm sat back in shock. That was before he met her. She was married to another man this entire time. "She's been using you for financial cover," Travis added. "Fake name, fake marriage, siphoning funds. And this David guy might be in on it, or he might be her next victim. Either way, she's dangerous." Malcolm's breath caught in his throat. His face went pale. He had filed immigration sponsorship for her. If this went public, he'd be seen as a co-conspirator unless he acted now. She had spun a web so complex it would ruin lives if untangled carelessly. But Malcolm was done playing the victim. Next time they saw each other, he wouldn't be her husband. He'd be her judge. The following day, Malcolm walked into the downtown Atlanta field office of Homeland Security. No lawyer, no PR rep, just him, his burner laptop, and a thumb drive full of nightmares. It was time to get ahead of the storm. He was led into a cold, windowless room where Agent Carla Nunez, sharp-eyed and stone-faced, greeted him. She didn't offer a handshake. "Mr. Pierce," she began, "we've reviewed your PI's findings. You understand you've potentially been harboring a fraud suspect involved in a multi-state identity and immigration scam." Malcolm didn't flinch. "I didn't know, but now that I do, I want to help you bring her in, along with whoever she's working with." He handed over the flash drive, the audio recordings, the SIM cards he'd found, and even the photos from Travis. Agent Nunez raised her eyebrows as she scanned the evidence. "This is big," she murmured. "Very big." She explained the situation. There had been similar reports across California, New Jersey, Texas, all involving brides who met wealthy men online, charmed them into marriage, and siphoned money under aliases. The feds had been tracking the operation for over a year, but until now they didn't have someone on the inside. "You're our entry point," she said, "but you'll have to keep pretending, keep her close, let her feel safe." Malcolm felt sick. "You want me to go back to her? To live with her?" "If you want her arrested with enough evidence to take down the entire ring, yes." It was a risk, a massive one. But Malcolm knew it was the only way to protect himself and stop others from becoming victims. He agreed. The game had changed. He wasn't just trying to survive anymore, he was going undercover in his own marriage. That evening, Nyambura returned as if nothing had happened. She walked through the front door in a lavender blouse, her afro wrapped in a golden scarf, and smiled like a woman whose world was still in perfect order. "I got you mangoes," she said, lifting a paper bag, "from that African store you like." Malcolm was already seated at the kitchen island, sipping from a glass of red wine. "Thanks," he replied with a tired smile. "You were gone for a while." She shrugged. "Had to help my friend with something in Gwinnett." He tilted his head. "David?" Her smile faltered for half a second. "Who?" "Never mind," he said quickly, sipping again. "You've been good to me lately. I've been thinking, maybe I should update the beneficiary on my business trust, just in case the investigation drags on." Her eyes lit up, just barely, but enough to confirm what he needed. "You'd really do that?" she asked, stepping closer, arms draped gently around his shoulders. "I'd do anything for my wife," he replied, wrapping his arms around her waist. The camera in the kitchen clock blinked silently, sending every second of the exchange to Agent Nunez. Later that night, Malcolm sat alone in the backyard, staring into the quiet trees. The woman sleeping upstairs had lied, stolen, married twice, and nearly ruined him. But now she trusted him again. And that trust would be her downfall. He just had to survive long enough to watch it happen. Malcolm woke the next morning to find Nyambura already dressed, applying makeup in the mirror. She looked radiant, perfect even, but behind the gloss and foundation, he saw what he hadn't noticed before: calculation. She turned and smiled. "I'm going to brunch with the girls. I might be gone a while." He nodded. "Take your time." As she walked out, Malcolm texted Travis and the federal agent immediately. "She's on the move." The plan was already in motion. The agency had tapped her phone, begun monitoring her emails, and embedded a tracker in her car, courtesy of Travis. But something was bothering Malcolm, a gut feeling that wasn't going away. It wasn't just her behavior, it was how smoothly she'd adapted to the money troubles. No outbursts, no panic, no emotional collapse. She was too calm. That afternoon, he went back to the basement. The black trunk was still there, but something felt off. He opened it. Gone. The passports, the money, even the gun. Only the invoices remained, harmless on their own. It was like someone had scrubbed the evidence clean. Malcolm's chest tightened. Had she figured it out? He checked the hallway camera, footage missing between 2:17 and 3:03 a.m., completely wiped. Only one person in the house had access to the app used to control the system: Nyambura. She knew. But was she just covering her tracks or preparing to strike? That night, Malcolm walked into the bathroom and found something strange. Written in the condensation on the mirror, in faint strokes that hadn't fully faded: "Be careful who watches you sleep." His stomach dropped. He hadn't used the shower yet. That message wasn't left accidentally. Someone wrote it after the last time the mirror fogged. A message from Nyambura, a warning, a threat. He called Travis in a whisper. "She knows. She's wiping her trail." Travis didn't even hesitate. "You need to get out of there now." But Malcolm couldn't leave. Not yet. If he disappeared too soon, she might vanish completely. And without her, the entire ring would scatter. The feds needed him to stay embedded. "I'll give it 2 more days," Malcolm said. "If she slips up again, we'll have what we need." He hung up, his fingers shaking. That night, he couldn't sleep. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. Nyambura lay beside him like nothing was wrong, one hand on his chest, her breathing steady. But Malcolm didn't close his eyes. Not once. He kept staring at the ceiling and wondering if she'd try to kill him in his sleep. Malcolm wasn't expecting anyone when the doorbell rang the next morning. Nyambura was upstairs in the shower, humming to herself, seemingly unfazed by the tension that now pulsed through every room of the house. He opened the door cautiously. Standing outside was a young man, early 30s, dark-skinned, nervous energy in his shifting eyes. He wore a bomber jacket and held a small envelope. "You, Malcolm Pierce?" the man asked. "Yes, who are you?" The man hesitated, then extended the envelope. "Just take this. I don't want trouble." Before Malcolm could ask anything more, the man turned and jogged back to a nondescript silver sedan parked across the street. He was gone before Malcolm could even memorize the license plate. Back inside, Malcolm tore open the envelope. Inside were 3 printed photos: Nyambura, dressed in black, sitting close to a woman on a porch. Behind them, a small girl, no more than 5, clung to Nyambura's leg. On the back of the last photo, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "She left us for money. Don't let her fool you, too." He stared at the child in the photo. The resemblance was haunting. Could it be Nyambura's daughter? His hands trembled as he stared at the pictures. This wasn't about just money anymore. This woman had abandoned a family and possibly hidden a child from him. But why? And who had sent the warning? Malcolm barely slept that night. The child's face from the photo haunted him. Those wide brown eyes, the shape of her nose, even the curl pattern in her hair. It all matched Nyambura. How could she have hidden an entire child? A family? By morning, he couldn't take it anymore. While Nyambura was in the shower again, he pulled her birth certificate out of the immigration documents she submitted, then cross-referenced it with local Kenyan records using Travis's secure connection. What came back was mind-blowing. Nyambura Wanjiku had indeed given birth at Nairobi Central Hospital 5 years ago. But the child had been registered under the father's name, Charles Muriithi. Malcolm hadn't heard that name before, but now everything clicked. Was that the man in the photos? Was he the one who sent the envelope? If she was hiding a child, there were 2 possible reasons. Either she was trying to escape from a dangerous past, or she had abandoned someone to build a more profitable future. Either way, Malcolm needed answers. That night, he casually brought up the topic of children over dinner. "I always thought I'd be a dad by now," he said, cutting into his salmon. "Do you want kids?" Nyambura stiffened, barely noticeable, but it was there. "One day," she said, "when the time is right." He leaned in slightly. "Have you ever been pregnant before?" She laughed, too loudly. "Number never, why?" Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter. Malcolm glanced at the screen. A message preview from an unknown number. "I warned you not to leave us. He knows now." Nyambura froze. Malcolm smiled slowly. The walls around her were crumbling, and he was watching every brick fall. Nyambura grabbed her phone the second she saw the message, her hand visibly trembling. Malcolm watched her carefully, every movement a potential confession. She turned away, staring at the screen as if her mind was sprinting to find a solution. "I need to step outside," she said, voice tight. "For what?" Malcolm asked, still chewing slowly. "Just some air." He shrugged casually. "Take your time." The moment the door closed behind her, Malcolm opened the small drawer in the kitchen island. Inside was a duplicate phone Travis had installed for mirroring her messages. Every text, every call, every search, he saw it all. The message thread that had just appeared was brief but telling. "Charles M., you lied to him. You left your daughter like she was trash. Charles M., don't think I won't come to that house and ruin everything. Nyambura, leave me alone. I told you this is my only way out. You should have protected us better." Malcolm's blood ran cold. There it was, proof. Not only did Nyambura have a daughter, but she had intentionally walked away from her and the father. The ambition that had charmed him before now revealed itself as something uglier. Desperation laced with betrayal. He sent the screenshot straight to Agent Nunez. Within minutes, she called back. "This changes everything," she said. "We might be able to get child abandonment charges filed in Kenya. That'll help pressure her associates to talk once this blows open, but tread carefully. If she suspects we're building a case around her family—" "She'll run?" Malcolm asked. "Worse. She'll burn everything to the ground, including you." That night, Malcolm sat alone in his home office, lights dimmed, the weight of everything pressing on his chest like a block of concrete. He had fallen in love with a lie, a masterfully woven, emotionally engineered lie. He picked up the framed wedding photo on his desk, her eyes wide and glistening, lips parted just enough for a dreamy smile. He wanted to throw it, but instead he stared at it longer. What kind of pain, what kind of calculation turned someone into this? Nyambura re-entered the house later that evening, her face carefully arranged into calmness. No trace of panic, no outbursts. But her movements were different, tighter, sharper. She was watching him too. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Just tired," he said. "Been thinking about getting away for a while, maybe to our cabin." She tilted her head. "Cabin?" "In the Blue Ridge Mountains. Quiet, no cell service. Thought it might help us reconnect." Her eyes flickered, not with interest but calculation. A getaway, alone, no service. It was either a perfect moment to eliminate a threat or a trap. She smiled. "That sounds perfect." And that was it. She took the bait. Malcolm messaged Travis and Agent Nunez immediately after she went to bed. She agreed. taking her to the cabin this weekend, prepare the takedown. The plan was simple: isolate her, catch her in a confession, and get it all on record. Once she admitted her involvement or tried to make a move, the feds would move in. He climbed into bed beside her hours later, watching her eyes flutter gently as she fell asleep. In 2 days, this woman, his wife, his betrayer, would face everything she'd tried to bury. And for once, he'd be the one holding the power. The cabin stood nestled in the shadows of the Blue Ridge Mountains, 2 hours from Atlanta and far from cell towers and traffic. The perfect place to reconnect, or in Malcolm's case, reveal. He had brought Nyambura there once before, early in their marriage, when things still felt real. But now the place felt like a stage, and both of them were actors, smiling, relaxed, lying. She packed light, almost too light, no laptop, no second phone, just a small overnight bag and a curious calmness that made Malcolm's skin itch. They arrived late Friday afternoon. The air was crisp, pine-scented. Malcolm kept his voice light, his touch gentle, though every second he spent near her felt like walking barefoot over glass. Inside, Travis had prepped hidden audio and video equipment, installed covertly the night before. Tiny mics in the lamp bases, mini cameras in 2 of the smoke detectors, all connected wirelessly to a feed that led straight back to Agent Nunez. As the sun dipped, Malcolm prepared dinner. Nyambura poured wine, laughing at one of his jokes, but there was tension under her laugh, like she knew something, like she was playing along until it was time to flip the game. After dinner, they sat in front of the fireplace. Malcolm brought up the past. "Ever wonder how different life would have been if we met under different circumstances?" he asked, eyes locked on hers. She blinked slowly. "You mean if you weren't rich?" he chuckled. "Or if you didn't need to escape Kenya?" There was silence. Then softly, "Everyone escapes something, Malcolm." "You escaped loneliness. I escaped something worse." The wine did its job, loosened her tongue, softened her defenses. Nyambura leaned back against the couch, legs folded beneath her, a faraway look in her eyes. "You ever wonder what it's like," she began, "to watch your mother beat you for smiling too much at a white tourist in a market? To see your sister sold off to a man 3 times her age for rent money? That's where I came from." Malcolm didn't speak. He let her continue, the mic catching every word. "I swore I'd never be powerless again," she whispered. "And when I found out how easy it was to become someone else, I didn't hesitate." Her eyes flicked to his. "I didn't marry you because I loved you. I married you because you were the key to something permanent." "And what about David?" Malcolm asked, his voice low, controlled. She looked at him for a moment too long, then shrugged. "He was plan B, or maybe I was his plan B. We both used each other. We're not in love, just aligned." "And your daughter?" Her face tightened. The smile faded. "I never wanted a child. She was an accident. Charles tried to use her to trap me. I left. That doesn't make me a monster." "No," Malcolm said, standing slowly. "Then what does?" She blinked at him, confused. Then, from the wall, a soft click. The camera disengaging. Outside, the crunch of boots on gravel. Blue and red lights danced through the curtains a moment later, followed by the thunderous knock on the door. "Homeland Security, open up!" Nyambura's face crumpled into shock, then fury. She lunged for her purse, but it was too late. Agents stormed in. Malcolm stepped back, heart pounding as 2 agents pinned her arms. "You set me up!" she screamed, thrashing. "You lied!" Malcolm stared coldly at her as she was dragged away. "So did you." The image hit the news by morning. Nyambura Wanjiku, handcuffed, her face a frozen mixture of rage and disbelief. Underneath her mugshot, the headline screamed, "Kenyan bride exposed, green card marriage scheme unraveled by tech millionaire." Malcolm stared at the television from his kitchen, coffee in hand. His face hadn't been included, at his request, and thanks to his cooperation with the feds. But the story spread like wildfire anyway. Social media buzzed with half-truths, speculation, and victim blaming. Some called him foolish, others called her evil, but most wanted details. He didn't care about the noise. What mattered was the result. She was in custody, and the net was widening. Agent Nunes called him with an update. She's lawyered up, but the evidence is solid. Audio confession, financial trail, false immigration documents. We'll bury her. Malcolm hesitated before asking, "What about the others?" "The ring." "We're working on it," she replied. "We've identified 3 more women operating under similar aliases. 2 of them are already in the US Immigration is coordinating now. You cracked the case open." He should have felt victorious, triumphant, but all he felt was empty. He had loved her. In some twisted way, part of him still did, and that part hurt the most. 3 days passed, then 5. No more news, until Travis called him with an edge in his voice. "Something's not right," the PI said. "She's not talking. No plea deal, no cooperation. That's not like someone who just got exposed." "What do you mean?" Malcolm asked. "I mean she's waiting, like she knows something we don't." That night, Malcolm couldn't sleep. The idea haunted him. What could she possibly have left? At 2:37 a.m., he got a call from a private number. Against better judgment, he answered. Nyambara's voice was calm. Too calm. "Malcolm, I hope you're enjoying the victory lap." His mouth went dry. "How are you calling me?" "You're smarter than I thought," she said, ignoring the question. "But you forgot one thing. I never lose without taking something with me." "I'm not afraid of you," he said. "You should be. You think this is over? You think the ring ends with me? That arrest was the beginning of something worse. I was a soldier, Malcolm, not the boss." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "They'll come for you now. The people you exposed, the ones I protected you from, without you ever knowing." Then the line went dead. Malcolm stood in the middle of his kitchen, phone still pressed to his ear. The game wasn't over, it had only just begun. The following morning, Malcolm found something strange in his mailbox, a plain white envelope with no return address and no postage. Someone had hand-delivered it. He opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, neatly folded, typed in block letters. "You exposed a sister. You will pay. Step back or watch everything burn." No signature, no other information, just that. Malcolm immediately called Agent Nunes. "We expected retaliation," she said. "These groups don't take betrayal lightly. You cracked the surface, now they're coming from underneath. I'll put surveillance on your home." But Malcolm didn't want protection. He wanted answers. He called Travis. "Find out who else she worked with. Find Charles. Find the child. I need to know everything before someone else finds me." Travis was already steps ahead. "I've tracked down a name that keeps popping up in old Kenyan police reports connected to Nyambura's alias, Dr. Karanja. No one knows what he does, but every woman connected to this scam passed through him." Malcolm's heart pounded. "Then that's where we go next, Dr. Karanja." The name echoed in Malcolm's ears all night. It wasn't in any American database, not on social media, not even in dark web leak sites Travis used to dig up deep secrets. But through encrypted communication with a contact in Nairobi, Travis found something. A small, run-down women's clinic in Westlands, Nairobi, fronted by an aging man known to take large sums of money for consultations that never appeared on record. Several women who passed through True Linked Hearts had appointments there. It wasn't a clinic, it was a recruitment hub. The women weren't just scammers, they were trained, scripted, given new identities, coached on how to manipulate wealthy men, and, when needed, how to disappear. Malcolm stared at the report Travis compiled and felt sick. He had walked into a web spun by professionals. His love story was never love. It was a performance. But just as he was digesting it, Travis called again, this time his voice tight. "Malcolm, we've got a problem." "What?" "I just got off the phone with the contact in Nairobi. Dr. Karanja was found dead last night. Gunshot, execution style, no robbery, nothing stolen." Malcolm froze. "You think it's connected?" "It's too clean," Travis said. "Either someone's cleaning house or sending a message." Another piece gone, another trail erased, and Malcolm had never felt more hunted. But one thing was clear now: he wasn't chasing shadows anymore, he was running out of time. 2 days passed. Malcolm kept his movements quiet. No social posts, no credit card swipes. Even his phone location was masked, but the threats didn't stop. Another message appeared on his windshield in the driveway one morning. "Next time, we won't knock." It was duct-taped directly to the glass. No prints, no witnesses. Even with Homeland Security watching his house, someone had gotten that close. It was proof. Whoever was behind this wasn't just smart, they were connected, and they wanted to break him before finishing him. Travis insisted he go into hiding. "I've got a place in North Carolina, empty house, remote, just for a week," he urged. But Malcolm refused. "I leave now. I look weak. I'm not running from ghosts. I want their names." Instead, Malcolm doubled down. He reached out to Charles Muriithi, the father of Nyambura's child. At first, Charles was hesitant, paranoid, but after seeing the photo of his daughter and reading the threats, he agreed to meet. "We talk in public, where they can't shoot me without 100 people watching," Charles said. They met at a crowded park in Decatur. Families around, runners, noise, safety in chaos. Charles arrived holding the hand of a small girl. Malcolm's chest tightened. She looked just like Nyambura. Charles sat beside Malcolm on a park bench while his daughter played in the grass nearby, twirling in her yellow dress. "I didn't know Nyambura the way you did," Charles began. "She wasn't always this cold. When we met, she was desperate, poor, beautiful, ambitious. I thought I could save her." "And then?" Malcolm asked. "She got an offer," Charles said darkly, "from people who told her they could give her a new life. She came back from that clinic a different person, ruthless. She told me I was too weak, that love was for fools. She left us a week later and never looked back." Malcolm leaned forward, voice low. "Do you know who recruited her?" Charles hesitated, then nodded. "One name. I only heard it once. Mama Sila." Malcolm frowned. "Who is that?" "She runs the women," Charles said, his voice dropping lower. "She's like a ghost in the system. No photos, no address, just whispers. You don't find her, she finds you. And if you cross her, you disappear." Malcolm's spine chilled. Another layer, another puppet master. But finally, a name. Charles pulled a small envelope from his jacket. "She sent this the week Nyambura got arrested." Malcolm opened it. Inside, a single photo of him, taken from outside his home, and a note, "One wife down. You want more blood." The name Mama Sila rattled in Malcolm's mind like a ticking clock. It wasn't just a nickname, it carried weight, authority, the kind that didn't come from noise, but silence. He searched her name online, through Travis's black market forums, even called in a favor from a contact in Nairobi's anti-fraud division. Nothing. No arrest records, no digital trail, no facial recognition matches, just rumors. One forum post caught his eye. "She wears white. Always white. They say she buries her enemies in their own secrets." Another post had only 3 words: "You don't survive her." Malcolm was losing sleep. Every creak in the house made him reach for his concealed firearm. He checked his security feeds twice every hour. Even the dog started reacting to sounds that weren't there. Then, just past midnight, Travis called. "I found someone," he said, his voice hoarse. "An ex-runner. Said she used to work under Mama Sila in Lagos. She's scared out of her mind, but she'll talk. Only to you." Malcolm didn't hesitate. "Where?" "Downtown Atlanta. Tonight." They met in the back of a dimly lit cafe near 5 Points. The woman's name was Tolu, early 30s, a thin scar down the side of her face, hands that shook as she sipped her tea. She hadn't touched the muffin Travis bought her. "She'll kill me if she finds out I spoke," she whispered. Malcolm leaned in. "She almost killed me without a reason. Help me give her one." Tolu took a deep breath. Mama Sila runs a recruitment and marriage ring spanning Nigeria, Kenya, the UK, and the US. The women she picks are desperate: poverty, abuse, orphaned, trafficked. She promises them papers, safety, money. But once you're in, you don't get out. Malcolm frowned. So she controls them? With shame, with fear. She has men in embassies, hackers, even immigration officers. She changes identities like outfits. Nyambura? She was one of Sila's favorites, a top earner. She was supposed to marry a man in California, but she picked you instead, thought she could get more. And the girl, her daughter. Liability, Tolu said flatly. Mama Sila doesn't tolerate emotional ties. That's why Nyambura left her. She was ordered to. Malcolm felt the bile rise in his throat. "So what do I do?" he asked. Tolu looked him dead in the eyes. "You don't fight her directly. You let her think she's still in control until she slips. And when she does, you expose her the same way she trains her girls to expose you." Malcolm exhaled slowly. He had a new target now, and her name was Mama Sila. Days passed in tense silence. Malcolm stayed off-grid, coordinating quietly with Agent Nunez and Travis. He had one goal now: flush Mama Sila out. But how do you catch a ghost? Tolu gave him the only lead he needed. "She hosts an event once a year," she had whispered, eyes darting. "A high society gala for donors, businessmen, diplomats, anyone rich enough to become a target. She doesn't call it recruitment, she calls it rebalancing love." Malcolm didn't know whether to laugh or feel sick. The event was in DC, at a private mansion under a shell company. No invites, only whispers, recommendations, and coded emails. Travis had a plan. "We'll get you in as a donor, someone disillusioned with love, looking for companionship overseas. They'll bite." Within 2 days, Malcolm had a fake identity set up. Christopher March, a widowed software executive with a clean digital footprint and a $10 million portfolio. The bait was irresistible. An encrypted message came through. "You've been selected to attend the Rebalance Gala. Prepare for an experience that will change your life. Dress in white. Come alone." Attached was the address. Malcolm stared at it. He had a foot in the door, but walking through it might be the most dangerous thing he'd ever done. The mansion loomed like a fortress, white pillars glowing beneath golden lights. Lush hedges, valets in matching tuxedos, and luxury cars lined the driveway. No media, no noise, just elegance and secrets. Malcolm arrived in a tailored white tuxedo. The air buzzed with expensive perfume and forced laughter. Couples danced under chandeliers. Soft music played from a grand piano in the corner. But Malcolm wasn't here to dance. He scanned the room. Nearly every woman was stunning, polished. Some clung to wealthy older men, others drifted alone, eyes scanning the crowd with precision. He could almost guess who was recruiting and who was the prey. Then he saw her, Mama Sila, an older woman in her late 50s, regal, dark-skinned, tall and statuesque. She wore a floor-length white gown with silver embroidery and a matching turban. No jewelry, just presence. She was surrounded by men, laughing, listening, drawn in by her magnetic voice. Malcolm approached slowly, heart pounding. She noticed him instantly. Her eyes, sharp as razors, sized him up in seconds. "You're new," she said, voice smooth as velvet. He smiled. "I've heard a lot about your work." "From whom?" He leaned in. "From someone who said you changed lives." Mama Sila's lips curled into a slow smile. "Oh, darling, I create lives." Behind her, 2 women, Nyambura's lookalikes watched him with unreadable expressions. Malcolm clinked his glass to hers. "Then I think we should talk business." She leaned closer. "Let's see what kind of man you really are." Malcolm smiled, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just a gala, it was the lion's den. Mama Sila led Malcolm through a long hallway draped in white linen, soft ambient music playing like a heartbeat in the background. Everything about her presence commanded attention. She didn't walk, she glided, as if the floor itself bent to accommodate her power. They entered a private lounge, dimly lit with velvet couches and a glowing saltwater aquarium humming in the corner. 2 other women sat inside, each one stunning, composed, and silent. Mama Sila gestured for Malcolm to sit. "You're wealthy, lonely, and seeking companionship," she said, eyes locked on him. "But you're not foolish. I can smell it." Malcolm smirked. "Then you know I want the real thing." "There's no such thing as real, Mr. March," she said, circling him like a panther. "Only negotiated affection. What we offer here is tailored love, loyalty, beauty, control, all legal, all protected." Her bluntness stunned him. "You're not even pretending it's about romance?" he asked. Mama Sila chuckled. "Romance is a lie men tell themselves when they hand over power. I sell something more permanent." She handed him a glossy folder. Inside were files, bios, photos, psychological assessments of women categorized by language skills, background trauma, obedience rating, and more. Malcolm's stomach turned as he flipped through them, like he was browsing a human catalogue. Then, on the last page, he saw something that froze his blood. Nyambura, labelled as decommissioned, unstable, emotionally compromised. "She chose poorly," Mama Sila said, noticing his reaction. "Married you off script, fell in love, that was her mistake." Malcolm swallowed hard. "And what happens to girls who make mistakes?" Mama Sila's eyes gleamed. "They're erased." Malcolm kept his cool, despite the rage boiling inside him. The hidden mic sewn into the lapel of his tux had captured everything. He tilted his glass just slightly, a prearranged signal to Travis, who sat a block away in a surveillance van, monitoring every word. But Sila wasn't done. She moved closer, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "You look like a man who's been betrayed. That's useful. It makes you hungry." She sat beside him, eyes searching his. "Tell me," she said, voice low, "what do you want?" Malcolm leaned in, careful with every word. "I want a partner who doesn't have a past." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she smiled. "We'll assign you a girl. She won't know your real name. You'll sign confidentiality agreements, and she'll be yours until the visa clears. And after, you disappear, and she replaces you with the next man in line." Malcolm kept nodding, playing along, but his hands were slick with sweat. "Do you ever worry the wrong man might expose you?" he asked. Mama Sila laughed. "Oh, darling, I've built this for 20 years. There is no wrong man, only tools I haven't sharpened yet." Then she stood. "But I like you. If you're serious, come back tomorrow. We'll start the process." As she turned to leave, Malcolm asked quietly, "And if I'm not serious?" Her voice dropped into a whisper. "Then you'll vanish like the others." She was gone before he could reply. Malcolm exhaled shakily and tapped his watch 3 times. Travis got the message. "Pull out, we got her." But deep down, Malcolm knew it wasn't over yet. Sila wouldn't go down easily, not without drawing blood. The following morning, Homeland Security executed a covert raid on the mansion, coordinated with FBI and Interpol. Drones captured every inch. Surveillance vans rolled up in silence. Armed officers moved like shadows, surrounding the estate just as the second night of the gala was about to begin. Inside, Malcolm had returned, just as he was instructed. He wore the same white suit, now wired from collar to cuff. Mama Sila had greeted him with a smile, unaware that every step she took inside the house was being tracked. The plan was simple: get her to hand over a contract, or better yet, a girl. That would seal the case. But Sila was too careful, too smart. "You came back," she said, swirling a glass of red wine. "I had my doubts." "I never waste potential," Malcolm replied. She motioned to a new woman approaching them. "Meet Fola. She'll be yours." Fola was barely 22, soft-spoken, too thin, and wore a fake smile Malcolm recognized instantly. He'd seen it on Nyambura in their earliest days. "She doesn't look like she wants this," Malcolm said. "She doesn't have to want it," Sila replied. "She only has to fulfill her role." That was the moment. Malcolm looked straight into Fola's eyes and said softly, "You're free now." Then he turned to Sila. "And you're done." Glass shattered somewhere behind them as tactical teams breached the rear. Screams echoed through the ballroom, lights flashed. Sila's smile twisted into something ancient and evil. "You think this ends with me?" she whispered as agents forced her to the ground. "No," Malcolm said, "but it starts here." The takedown was brutal and clean. 12 arrests, 6 victims rescued, 3 high-profile men exposed, judges, politicians, even a tech CEO. The headlines wrote themselves, "International Marriage Ring Dismantled in Secret Gala Sting." "Millionaire Victim Turned Undercover Hero." "The Woman Called Mama Sila Revealed at Last." But the most important headline never made it to the news, because the war wasn't over. In the days that followed, Malcolm learned that Sila's network had multiple offshoots: Europe, Dubai, even parts of Asia. And worse, Nyambura had vanished. The day of Sila's arrest, she escaped federal custody during a routine prison transport. No one knew how. "She had help," Travis said grimly. "Sila's fall just lit the signal fire. The survivors are scattering." Malcolm stared at a photo of her the FBI sent, Nyambura, walking through an alley in DC, disguised in a hoodie, disappearing into the crowd. Part of him still wanted to believe she could be saved, but the rest of him knew Nyambura wasn't running to hide. She was running to rebuild. And next time, she might not come alone. 3 weeks after Sila's arrest, Malcolm returned to a life that no longer felt like his own. The mansion in Atlanta was quieter, the media had moved on, and the case was now in the hands of international prosecutors. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was unfinished, like a key character had walked off stage before the final act. Then the encrypted message arrived. It was sent to a burner email he hadn't used in over a year. No subject line, no text, just a single image. Nyambura, standing on the balcony of a high-rise building, wearing all black, her expression cold, commanding. In the background, a neon sign glowed faintly in Swahili. "Moto huzaliwa tena," fire is born again. Attached was a one-line message. "She fell, but I learned. I won't make the same mistakes." Malcolm stared at it for a long time. She wasn't hiding. She was rebuilding. He shared the photo with Travis, who traced it to a penthouse in Lagos. A property recently purchased under a shell company tied to a new app, Global Hearts AI, claiming to connect compatible cross-cultural partners through advanced emotional algorithms. "She's modernizing the scam," Travis muttered. "No more middlemen. She's going digital, cleaner, smarter, untraceable." Malcolm's chest tightened. She had learned from the fall of Mama Sila, and now she was building something worse, something legal. He looked at the photo again. This wasn't the same woman he married. This was a new queen rising from the ashes. The feds couldn't move without proof. The new operation was too clean, too corporate. No obvious victims, no illegal transactions. Just an elegant-looking app funded by foreign venture capitalists and wrapped in inclusive marketing. But Malcolm knew what it really was, a velvet-gloved dagger. And he was the only one who could stop it. "I want in," he told Agent Nunes. She raised an eyebrow. "You want to go undercover again?" "I still know her," Malcolm said, "and she knows me. If she wants to prove she's untouchable, she'll try to draw me in, Make me her trophy." "She almost had you killed," Nunez reminded him. "I'll take that risk." Travis sighed. "You think she'll take the bait?" Malcolm looked down at the message she sent, the calculated threat, the photo, the language of power. "Oh, she already has." The next day, Malcolm created a new identity, one with a tragic past, impressive wealth, and just enough digital sadness to be a perfect target on her new platform. He signed up for Global Heart's AI. Within 48 hours, his match arrived. Her name, Nia Mburu. Age 29, nationality Pan-African, profession emotional alignment coach. Her profile photo, a shadowed image, but the smile, undeniably Nia Mbura's. Malcolm stared at the screen, barely blinking. Nia Mburu. A new name, a new bio, a digitally polished profile. But the curve of her smile, the fire in her eyes, and the haunting calm in her expression gave her away. It was her, no doubt. The app allowed for a brief exchange before the platform's human connection concierge would schedule a secure video date. Malcolm had to move fast but stay within character. Christopher March, widowed, emotionally vulnerable, eager to rebuild. He typed carefully, "You look like someone who understands silence. I've been living in too much of it." A minute later, she replied, "And you look like someone who hides in plain sight. Let's meet somewhere quieter." Then came a second message, an encrypted invitation to a private virtual room, bypassing the app's interface. She was taking him off-grid already. She didn't trust the system she built. She knew she was being watched. That meant she remembered what Malcolm had done and what he'd destroyed. But the fact that she responded at all meant one thing. She wanted him back in her orbit. And this time, there would be no lies between them. Only war. The video room opened with a soft chime. Malcolm sat in front of a neutral background, every camera in his home disabled except for one encrypted laptop connected to a government-controlled server. His fingers were slick with sweat. Then she appeared. Nyambura, no, Nia now, sat against a backdrop of rich African tapestries. Her afro was longer, adorned with gold cuffs. Her skin glowed, her posture regal. But her smile, that smile held knives. "I knew it was you," she said, her voice like velvet and venom. "No one else is arrogant enough to hide behind the same lie twice." Malcolm forced a smile. "You still read me too well." "Why are you here?" she asked. "To gloat? To finish what you started? Or to ask me to come back?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "I'm here to stop you." She laughed, a soft, mocking sound. "Darling, I don't need to con anyone anymore. I've evolved. Global Hearts is a platform, not a scam. People know what they're signing up for." "You're selling hope wrapped in dependency," he said. "You're just Sila with a better website." Her smile didn't falter. "You think because you stopped me once, you know me. I was Sila's student, but now I'm everyone's teacher." Silence fell. Then she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "You still love me," she whispered. Malcolm said nothing. "You still dream about me," she added. "And you're still predictable enough to follow me into the fire." She ended the call. But one last message flashed across the screen before the window closed. "If you want to end me, Malcolm, you'll have to become me." And he knew what that meant. To stop her for good, he'd have to go darker than he ever dared. Malcolm sat motionless, the glow from the laptop screen fading into the dimness of his office. Nyambura's words echoed in his head. "You'll have to become me." She wasn't bluffing. She had built something more dangerous than Mama Sila's empire because it was wrapped in consent, marketed as empowerment, and legally bulletproof. She'd weaponized her past mistakes and turned them into a global operation, and now she was daring him to come after her. But Malcolm wasn't the same man who fell in love with a lie. He contacted Agent Nunez the next morning. "I want to go in," he told her. "From the inside. Not as Christopher March. This time I want to be one of her own." Nunez raised a brow. "You want to pose as a recruiter?" "Yes," he said. "I want her to believe I've crossed over, that I've joined the system." It was risky, too risky, but it was the only way to learn how the new empire worked, and more importantly, to find where she was hiding, how the money flowed, and what happened to the victims behind the facade of global hearts. Travis set up a new alias, Victor Ajani, a Nigerian American with a criminal history, financial desperation, and a flair for persuasion. The kind of man Nyambura would consider an asset. Malcolm created a backstory, practiced the accent, even forged messages showing past successes in recruiting high-value clients. Then he leaked the identity to one of her regional team leads under a burner name. 2 days later, a message arrived. "Mama's curious. Prove your value." Attached was a challenge. Lure a US businessman into the platform and get him to pay $50,000 into a partner trust. It was a test. If he passed, she'd open the door. And once Malcolm walked through, there was no turning back. Malcolm's task was simple: con a man just like himself. The irony wasn't lost on him. To bring Nyambura down, he had to become the mirror image of his former self. A lonely, wealthy American looking for love, now reversed as the manipulator. He created a fake profile for a woman named Kessie, beautiful, poetic, and desperate for love. He used AI to generate video clips of her speaking Swahili and romantic English lines, filtered through a real actress's likeness. Malcolm began the conversation under his alias as Kessie's guardian, someone who oversaw African matchmaking for Western gentlemen. At first, George was hesitant, but then came the letters, the emotional videos, the backstory of a woman who wanted to be saved from a dying country and had only one person she trusted in the US, him. George fell for it hard. Within a week, he sent $20,000, then another $10,000. When he reached $50,000, Malcolm froze. He had succeeded. He had become exactly what Nyambura wanted. And the next day, her message came. "Welcome to the family, Victor. Let's talk in person." She sent an address in Accra, Ghana. No guards, no middlemen, just her. Malcolm stared at the message. This was it. He was going to stand face to face with the woman who betrayed him, escaped justice, and built an empire on broken hearts. And this time, he was ready to break hers. Malcolm boarded the plane to Ghana under the name Victor Ajani, dressed in designer sunglasses, linen shirts, and a confidence he didn't feel. Every step forward was layered in adrenaline and calculation. He was going deeper than ever into the world that had once shattered him. But this time, he wasn't walking in blind. Agent Nunes had set up surveillance with the help of Ghana's Bureau of National Investigations, BNI, though their hands were limited. Nyambura's new operation was shielded by international investments and corrupt local players. If he wanted to catch her, it would have to be personal. The moment he stepped out of Kotoka International Airport, the heat hit him like a wave. So did the nerves. A sleek black SUV was waiting at the curb, engine humming. A driver in a white dashiki stepped out and nodded at him. "Mr. Ajani," he said, "Mama is expecting you." No name, no fanfare, just Mama. He got in. The drive was silent, cutting through the busy streets of Accra and climbing toward a private estate on the outskirts of the city. The roads grew quieter, more guarded. By the time they reached the compound gates, fortified, discreet, and surrounded by mango trees, Malcolm's pulse was pounding. The gates opened slowly. He was back in her world now, and this time he wasn't sure he'd get out. The main building of the compound looked like a boutique resort, white-walled with golden accents, silent fountains, and orchids lining the walkways. But Malcolm knew better. He wasn't walking into a resort, he was walking into a kingdom. Inside, the air was cool, lavender-scented, quiet. Then he saw her, Nyambura, now fully transformed into Mama Nia, seated on a low marble throne carved with tribal symbols. She wore a pearl-coloured robe and gold cuffs, her hair braided into a crown. "Victor," she said, smiling like a queen greeting a knight, "you've impressed me." Malcolm bowed his head. "I serve the future." She motioned for him to sit. No guards, no tension, just two predators circling in silence. "You tricked an American," she said, "made him feel like a savior. That takes skill and darkness." Malcolm nodded. "I learned from the best." She narrowed her eyes. "You mean Sila?" "No," he said quietly. "I mean you." A flicker of recognition passed across her face. She knew, but instead of fury, she laughed. "You crawled all the way to Ghana to what? Kill me? Expose me again?" she asked. Malcolm leaned forward. "Number I came to finish what you started." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "I'm here to burn it all," he said, voice steady. "Your app, your lies, your empire." And then, from his watch, he tapped a single button. A sharp buzz echoed in the room. Signal transmitted. All around the compound, hidden cameras blinked to life. Micro-drones flew overhead, capturing everything. "I'm not the victim anymore," Malcolm said. "I'm your reckoning." Nyambura's smile died, and for the first time, she looked afraid. Nyambura stood slowly, her robe cascading like a wave of silk. But her face had hardened. Gone was the charm, the sweetness, the sultry voice that had once made Malcolm forget his instincts. What stood before him now was pure steel, a woman who had risen from dust and betrayal to command an empire. "You think I didn't see this coming?" she asked coldly. Malcolm's heart pounded, but he didn't flinch. "You should have walked away when you had the chance." She smirked, stepping toward him. "Men like you always think you're the end of my story, that just because you caught me once, you figured out my game." She clapped her hands twice. Two men stepped in through a side door, her guards. Not armed, but their posture made it clear she wasn't planning to let him leave easily. "You're not recording anything anymore," she said, but Malcolm smiled. "You're wrong." Just then, a crack of glass echoed through the air as a drone slammed into the side window. On purpose, Nyambura froze. She had been so careful, so untouchable. But this time, she had let him get too close. The guards reached for Malcolm, but he raised his arms. "Don't," he said. "That's a federal crime. And now the whole world is watching." The agents stormed in seconds later, BNI, Homeland Security and INTERPOL in a joint strike. Nyambura stood in the middle of it all, expressionless. "This isn't over," she whispered, even as her wrists were cuffed. Malcolm stepped forward. "You're right," he said. "It's just the beginning of your end." Back in the US, headlines lit up every news channel. Global Heart's AI found to be cover for international marriage fraud empire. The fall of Mama Naya, how one man infiltrated a digital romance cult. Victims come forward after arrest of notorious African queenpin, Malcolm testified behind closed doors. His recordings, video footage, and live drone captures from the Ghana sting became key evidence in one of the most complex cross-border cases in modern cybercrime history. Nyambura faced over 32 charges, from immigration fraud and identity theft to emotional exploitation, conspiracy, and money laundering. Multiple co-conspirators were arrested across 5 countries. But even with all that, she refused to break. She sat in court each day, calm, collected, still regal. Even in prison beige, she looked like a leader. Reporters asked if Malcolm felt justice had been served. His response was simple. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted to stop the cycle. If she walks out someday and chooses to be better, I'll be watching." When Nyambura was finally sentenced to 35 years with no chance of parole, she didn't cry. She just turned her head, looked at Malcolm, and smiled. As if to say, Even now, you still love me." He didn't, not anymore, but part of him would always remember the woman he met online, the one he thought he could save, the one who taught him that love without truth is just another weapon. 6 months had passed since the trial. Malcolm had distanced himself from the media frenzy, retreating to a quiet life in Asheville, North Carolina. No lavish mansion, no luxury cars, just silence and time to think. He spent his mornings hiking, his evenings reading, and his nights wondering if he'd ever trust again. Then one afternoon, while he was working in a coffee shop downtown, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you Mr. Malcolm Pierce?" He looked up and froze. A girl stood before him, no older than 6 or 7. Her hair was styled into short, neat braids. Her eyes, Nyambura's eyes, held a weight that didn't belong to someone so young. Behind her stood Charles Muriithi, looking older, thinner. He held a manila folder in his hands. "We didn't come for money," Charles said quickly. "We came because she keeps asking." Malcolm knelt to the girl's level. "What's your name?" The girl blinked, then whispered, "Naya." Malcolm swallowed hard. "That's a beautiful name." "She saw you on TV," Charles said quietly, "and she's been drawing pictures of you ever since." Malcolm stared at the girl again, something deep cracking in his chest. He never wanted to be a father, not like this. But she stood there, calm, quiet, carrying the weight of her mother's legacy without knowing the full story. "I just want to understand who she was," Charles added, "before she became Mama Naya." Malcolm took a breath, then gestured to the table. "Sit down." Weeks passed. Malcolm began meeting Nia and Charles every Sunday. They walked the botanical gardens, visited museums, shared stories. Nia was bright, loved math, could sketch faces from memory, and had an uncanny way of noticing when people were sad. One day, Charles handed Malcolm an envelope. "It came through the embassy," he said. "From her." Malcolm took it slowly. The return address, Federal Women's Prison, Dakar, Senegal. Inside, a letter, handwritten, no perfume, no lipstick, just ink on folded paper. "Malcolm, if this reaches you, then I trust that Charles found the courage I never had. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know something. Nia was the only good thing I ever created, and I left her to chase a life that destroyed me. But you saw me, the real me. And for a moment, I believed I could change. You were my punishment and my miracle. If she ever asks about me, tell her only what she needs to know, not who I became, but who I could have been. And Malcolm, thank you for stopping me before I went too far to come back." Naya Malcolm stared at the letter for a long time. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't closure, but it was something. He looked at Nia, chasing a butterfly in the field beyond the coffee shop window. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Spring had just begun to thaw the edges of the Blue Ridge Mountains when Malcolm received a call from Travis, his voice carrying a blend of urgency and awe. "You're going to want to see this." Malcolm drove down to Atlanta the next day, where Travis pulled him into a downtown co-working space, away from ears and eyes. On the screen of his laptop was a digital bank interface, one Malcolm didn't recognize. "I was scrubbing through some old metadata from Mama Naya's operation," Travis explained. "I was looking for anything missed, and then I found this. An offshore account registered to Sapphire Coast Holdings. A name never tied to Sila, never tied to Nyambura in any of her known aliases, until now. One hidden line in the Global Heart server logs showed Nyambura accessed the account 3 times. Once, just 2 weeks before her arrest. Once, during her escape from federal transport. And once more, a day after Naya met you." "What's in it?" Malcolm asked, bracing himself. Travis clicked through. A series of transfers, over $2.1 million, moved in and out. Some gone, some frozen, but $750,000 still sat untouched. Then Travis opened the folder labeled Recipients. Malcolm's heart dropped. Nia Pierce, born Nairobi, beneficiary, scheduled disbursement, her 18th birthday. She planned it, Travis whispered, before everything collapsed, a nest egg for the daughter she pretended didn't exist. Malcolm sat back in his chair, stunned. She'd told the world she didn't care, lied to Charles, lied to him, lied to herself. But she'd left a legacy behind anyway, a secret fortune, a silent apology, and a choice that no one could undo. Malcolm took 3 days before telling Charles about the account. They met at the same garden where Nia now spent her Sundays learning to sketch wildlife. Charles sat in stunned silence, gripping the edge of the bench. "She lied to me about everything," he whispered, "but not about this." "We don't have to touch it," Malcolm offered, "or even tell Nia, but it's hers. You can't deny that." Charles shook his head slowly. "She deserves a chance, a clean one." But then he turned to Malcolm, eyes filled with a quiet pain. "And what about you? You gave up everything to stop her. You buried parts of yourself just to keep her from hurting others. Now you're raising her daughter." "I'm not raising her," Malcolm said softly. "I'm just making sure she remembers the right parts of her mother." Charles smiled bitterly. The world will write Nyambura off as a villain. Maybe she was. But in the end, she left something behind worth saving. That evening, Malcolm gave the account details to a law firm and locked them behind a trust with a single instruction. Nia must never find out about the source until she turns 21. By then, Malcolm hoped the world would have changed, that she would be strong enough to carry the weight, that the name Nyambura would mean more than scandal. And as he watched her that night, running across a field, chasing fireflies with a drawing pad in hand, he realized something. He had spent so long searching for justice, closure, revenge. But what he found instead was a second chance, not just for Nia, but for himself. 10 years passed. Malcolm, now 48, watched Nia grow from a wide-eyed child into a confident, inquisitive young woman. At 17, she was a scholarship student at a prestigious international school in Atlanta, gifted in visual storytelling, deeply curious about psychology, and fiercely independent. She had Malcolm's patience, her father Charles' logic, and Nyambura's quiet fire. Only one thing haunted her: her mother. "Who was she really, Malcolm?" Nia asked one night as they sat on the porch sipping tea. "Everyone talks around it. I know you're all protecting me, but I'm not a kid anymore." Malcolm hesitated. She was complex, brilliant, dangerous, but also lost. She made choices that hurt people, but part of her tried to make up for it. Nia's voice softened. "Did she love me?" He paused again. "Yes, in her own way. She just didn't know how to love right." Nia turned her face to the moonlight, eyes full of questions she couldn't yet ask. She didn't know about the trust fund. She didn't know her mother had almost created a global syndicate. And she didn't know that people still whispered her name in encrypted chat rooms. But someone else did. 2 months before Nia's 18th birthday, a letter arrived, addressed to her, with a return address marked Kawangware, Nairobi. There was no sender name. The handwriting was careful, almost too neat. Malcolm intercepted it at the mailbox, his gut tightening the moment he saw the postmark. He opened it first. Inside, a simple note, to the daughter of the Queen. "Your mother was many things, liar, leader, liberator. She built something the world tried to erase, but we remember, and now so should you. Come to Nairobi. Your legacy awaits. No threats, no demands, just an invitation." Attached was a photo, a worn, grainy image of a group of young women in white robes standing around a central figure. At the center, Nyambura, smiling like a goddess. Behind her, carved into a stone wall, the New Order of Malkia. Queen. Malcolm folded the letter slowly, heart racing. Someone had kept her legacy alive, and they were now calling for Nia. He locked the letter away and told Nia nothing, but he knew this was just the beginning. Her name, her bloodline, her inheritance. They were about to wake up something he had buried long ago. Malcolm knew the storm was coming. He could feel it in the way Nia stared longer at old photos, the way she dug through archives, school databases, and even obscure African history blogs looking for fragments of a woman no one wanted to speak about. Then, one day after school, she walked into his study with a box. "I found this in the attic." Malcolm turned, eyes narrowing as he recognized the old cedar chest, one of the few things salvaged from Nyambra's estate during the raid in Ghana years ago. He had locked it away and forgotten about it. Or maybe he had hoped it would never be opened. Nia placed the box on the desk and opened it. Inside was a single item, a leather-bound journal, yellowed pages filled with Nyambura's handwriting. Elegant, emotional, sharp. Nia turned the first page. At the top, in bold strokes, "To the daughter I was never brave enough to raise. May this explain why I had to become a monster to give you a kingdom." The entries weren't just reflections. They were plans, maps, names, codes. Every step of her transformation from a desperate girl in Nairobi to the queen of a digital empire was detailed within. Nia looked up at Malcolm, eyes wide. "You knew?" He nodded slowly. "I did. I was trying to protect you." She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "I think it's time I meet her, the woman she became." Malcolm's heart ached. "It's not a road you can walk halfway down, Nia. Once you open this door, there's no turning back." "I don't want to be her," she said. "I just want to understand her." And so that night, she read every single page. 3 weeks later, Nia sat across from Malcolm at breakfast, holding a folded plane ticket. "Who gave you that?" he asked, pulse rising. "I booked it," she said, "with the savings from my summer internships." "Nia, I know about the trust fund," she cut in softly, "and I know you've kept the worst of her story from me. But I'm not going to Nairobi to follow her. I'm going to finish what she started." Malcolm stared at her. "You're 18, just barely. You think you're ready, but I'm not going alone," she interrupted. "I've already contacted a journalist in Kenya and a local women's rights activist who's been helping victims of online exploitation. I'm going to document what Mum's legacy really did and maybe undo some of it." He paused, stunned. "You want to expose her?" "No," Nia whispered. "I want to redeem her." The room fell into silence. Finally, Malcolm spoke. "Then I'll come with you." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You already saved her once. Now it's my turn." The next morning, she boarded a plane. Destination, Nairobi. Her only luggage, a camera, her mother's journal, and a name the world had tried to bury. But Nia was no longer a child running from a shadow. She was walking straight into it. Nia stepped off the plane and into the warm, chaotic heartbeat of Nairobi. The city pulsed with sound, horns, street vendors, music, shouts, life. But beneath the color and movement was a sense of purpose. She was walking in her mother's footsteps, but not to follow, to confront, to reclaim. Waiting outside the airport was Amara Nyutu, a 40-something Kenyan journalist who had reached out after reading Nia's email. She was tall, tough, and spoke with the speed of someone who didn't waste time. "You have your mother's fire," Amara said as they shook hands. "Let's use it wisely." They drove through the city in silence at first, winding through downtown, past skyscrapers, and into more humble areas where satellite dishes clung to rusted rooftops. They finally stopped in Kawangware, the place listed in that anonymous letter. "Your mother's roots were here," Amara said, "and so were the seeds of the Order of Malkia." Nia clutched the journal tighter. The pages had already led her to names, coordinates, and a house marked with a sun and 3 dots. a symbol mentioned several times in her mother's entries. They arrived at the location, a crumbling compound with faded murals and barbed wire, now abandoned. Inside, the air smelled like dust and memory. Old pamphlets littered the floor. The power of the modern woman. Exit the cage, join the circle. Handwritten notes about cryptocurrency, foreign banks, facial recognition loopholes. But in the center of the room, painted on the floor, was the symbol. Sun symbol, the emblem of the Order of Malkia. She knelt, touching it. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the dark. "You shouldn't be here." Nia stood, heart pounding. A woman emerged from the shadows, mid-50s, dreadlocked, scar across her face. "You're her daughter," she said. "We've been expecting you." The woman introduced herself as Mama Rehema, one of Nyambura's original lieutenants, thought to be dead, now hidden, reborn as a spiritual counselor for ex-cons and trafficked women. "We kept the order alive," she said, "not as a scam, but as a shelter. After the collapse, we turned it into something real, for the broken, the hunted." Nia listened, torn between pride and dread. "You're saying, my mother's empire helped people?" she asked. "No," Rehema replied. "You're helping people just by being here, because her story, flawed, painful, still matters." Rehema handed Nia a flash drive. "Everything we salvaged, names of victims, stories, a map of the real network, and a final video from Nyambura. She recorded it after your birth." Nia clutched the drive, trembling. "She knew someday you'd come looking," Rehema said softly. And in that moment, Nia understood. This wasn't about legacy anymore, it was about truth. And the only way forward was to confront everything, even the woman who gave her life and nearly destroyed so many others. Nia sat alone in a dimly lit room, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, the flash drive trembling in her fingers. Outside, Nairobi buzzed with life, but in here, time had frozen. She slid the drive into her laptop. A single video file appeared. "For Naya, open only when ready." She clicked. The screen flickered, then cleared. There she was, Nyambura. Younger than Nia remembered from the photos. Her hair braided back, eyes intense but softer, like this version of her had not yet become Mama Nia, queen of manipulation. She looked directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, it means I'm either dead or you've found the pieces I left behind. I won't pretend I deserve to be remembered, but I hope I can still be understood." Nia gripped the sides of the laptop, holding her breath. "I built something terrible. I called it power, but it was fear. I called it justice, but it was greed. And in the middle of it all, I left you. I told myself I was giving you a better life, but the truth is, I was running from shame, from softness, from motherhood." She paused, swallowing hard. "I don't know what kind of woman you are now, but if there's any part of me in you, I know this. You're brave, smarter than I ever was. Kinder, I pray. I left something behind. Not a throne, not a fortune, a story. One only you can finish." Nyambura leaned in closer. "Burn what you must, keep what matters, but don't become me, become better." The screen faded to black. Nia sat frozen. Then quietly she wept, not for the criminal her mother had become, but for the girl Nyambura once was, and the woman she never got to be. By morning, Nia had made her decision. She met with Amara and Mama Rehema, laying out a plan that would shock governments, expose hidden trafficking networks, and redeem victims silenced by fear. "Your mother kept records the world never saw," Amara said. "If we publish them now, some of the most powerful people in business and government will fall. And so will some victims who are still hiding," Mama Rehema warned. "Not everyone wants the truth exposed." Nia nodded. "I don't want revenge. I want repair. I want a documentary. I want truth with context, not just headlines." Amara's eyes lit up. "A digital archive, protected identities, victim-first storytelling." Nia smiled. and I'll call it red flags and green cards. She would tell the whole story of how a woman tried to weaponize love and left behind a legacy both twisted and human. She would reveal how the line between victim and villain sometimes blurs. And she would use her platform to build scholarships, shelters, and safe matchmaking networks built on transparency and care. She wasn't here to wear her mother's crown, she was here to break it. Back in Atlanta, Naya launched the Red Flags and Green Cards project with a single, powerful short film on YouTube. It opened with her voiceover blurred photos of her mother, set against a slow piano score. My mother built an empire from broken hearts. This is the story of the people caught in her web and how we begin to heal from it. Within a week, the video had over 4 million views. Then came interviews, survivor testimonies, hidden documents released through secure platforms. Major news outlets picked up the story. A major streamer reached out to license the full documentary. Universities requested her for lectures. Grants poured in. But Nia wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing accountability. With the help of Mama Rahema, Amara, and a growing team of digital investigators, Red Flags uncovered over 300 victims across 4 continents and linked at least 12 governments to laundering and immigration manipulation. Her mother's name was back in the headlines. But this time, not as a curse, as a warning. And a generation of women, once groomed to seduce and disappear, finally had a voice. One evening, Nia stood on a TEDx stage, staring out at a sea of bright faces. "My name is Nia," she said, "and I am the daughter of a queen who nearly became a tyrant. But I've chosen to be something else, a bridge between truth and healing." The crowd erupted in applause. But that night, a shadow followed her home. It arrived by courier, no return address, a flash drive. Nia hesitated, then loaded it onto her encrypted laptop. A video opened, a dark room, just one flickering candle, and then a face. Older, wrinkled, eyes like molten steel. Mama Sila. She hadn't died. She had simply gone deeper underground. "Hello, little lioness." Nia's chest tightened. "You think your story ends with justice, with cameras and forgiveness. Number your mother was my student, but you're a threat. And I don't destroy threats. I absorb them." She leaned forward. "Come find me, or I'll find you first." Nia stared into the dark reflection on her laptop screen. Her mother's story was done, but hers had just begun. The end of Book 1. Kindly subscribe for more stories.